Black Scully on check. Got a little American theme, the American Conference shirt on check. Welcome to another marvelous episode. Today's episode is going to be a real fun one. I'm releasing my college football playoff for rankings. I will also, I'm sorry, not rankings, but my bracket. I'm releasing that today, and we're going to walk through it slowly. You'll see the initial bracket. Then we'll go to the quarterfinals. Then we'll go to the semifinals. Then we'll go to the national championship. So that's the big enchilada today. Of course, we're going to talk about other things as well, but that's the big thing today. We're going to do our college football playoff bracket. I will release it on Twitter a little bit later. I'm going to also holler at the gang and see if they can send me theirs so we can release theirs as well. I already had a bracket set up, so it'll be extremely easy for them to do. So on today's docket, I am so glad that we're in a college football week. It feels amazing. I got a flight to catch on Friday to head to ATL to go to our week 0 game, which will be one of our HBCU weeks. We're going to the SWAC MEAC Challenge in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm ready to see what the beautiful city of Atlanta has to offer. And it's funny because week 1 we'll be right back down there in Atlanta as well. So for our Into the News dockets, we just got a lot of quarterback battles. Coaches want to come back and transfers on the move. We're going to talk about Kentucky quarterback room. Coach O is the coach I was talking about. Ed Orgeron is wanting to, want to make a comeback. And I got some teams in mind who I think he'll be a good fit for. Syracuse named Steve Angeli, QB1. Ohio State has the keys to Julian Sayin. He's QB1 in Columbus. Clemson transfer Marquise Henderson. I want to do an update on him because I thought he'd have been pivotal for Liberty this upcoming season because I have high hopes with the Liberty Flames this season, but for some reason he's not there. I don't know exactly what's going on, but things didn't work out in Clemson. I'm not sure what's going on at Liberty. I don't know. It's interesting. And Tennessee names Joey Aguilar the starter. So those are Into the News segments. For Governor Reacts, we're going to break down. AP released their, first team and second team All-Americans for 2025. You know how I'm going to do. I'm going to react. We're going to react to that as well. Then for Governor ruling, that's our college football playoff bracket. You guys know I typically do like 4 segments because typically Around the Nation is the last segment. And I was going to try to squeeze that in, but Kansas State, Iowa State deserves time. You know what I mean? For when we do, that breakdown. So I didn't want to try to fit it into this episode because I know the bulk of this episode will be my college football playoff bracket. So please like, comment, share, subscribe. We are live on 3 different platforms right now. We're live on Twitter at my Twitter handle at @Lever_KT. Also live on the CFB Nation. That Twitter handle is at the CFB Nation. And we're also live on my YouTube, which is at Governor of College Football. Y'all can check us out on all those platforms. The VODs are always live on your favorite, listening platform. Spotify is the preferred platform because they have the video podcast, which is really cool. Governor College Football, hashtag go CFB. CFB Nation, your only college football destination. Let's get it. Governor of College Football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's CJ
defensive
on
minds.
the
They have to be better on that side of This is our Into the News segment. It is Tuesday, August 19th. Beautiful day here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Kind of overcast skies. Kind of looking like the fall a little bit outside. And I love autumn, to be honest with you. We get college football in the autumn. You guys already know why. But the weather's kind of chill. The weather here is crazy. In the winter, it's cold. We do get snow. In the summer, it's hot. And it's that humid hot. So on days like this, we truly appreciate it. It is a game week. College football is finally back. Week 0 does matter. We have so much to talk about today. And over this past weekend, I kind of made a promise to myself, and I'm going to share this promise with you guys. There's aren't going to be too many people that put out more college football content than me this upcoming year. I promise you one. We live 5 days a week. You guys already know that. Saturdays we will be going live at whatever the last stadium is. We'll be going live from there. Me and Moon got a vertical show. So you know how this is, 16 by 9. That'll be 9 by 16. So it's like on your phone. We're going to be doing that over on TikTok and Instagram and probably Twitter as well. And I was like, you know what? Hey, let's just do a vertical show of our own twice a week just to really build up the brand. So that'll probably be on Instagram and TikTok as well. So I made that promise to myself, and I'm going to also make that promise to you guys that, hey, we're going to put out content and then emergency broadcast, when it's necessary, or we just watch the crazy game. I don't care if it's a, West Coast game and don't finish at 1 a.m. If it deems me to go live because it's a crazy game, I will be going live. So that's the promise I made to myself, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I always told myself if I ever had the opportunity, even for just a fall, to do this full time, I'm going to really do it full time, and I'm going to attack it 100%. So let's get into the news stories for today. A lot of news. Our CFB Nation chat was so active. It was so active yesterday, and it's really dope. I wasn't sure when some of these quarterback battles were going to be, announced. Like, I wasn't sure when Ohio State planned on announcing theirs, with Julian Sayin there's QB1. So, Kentucky, man, their quarterback derby is a little undecided. We can talk about that right now. So, we look at who they have at quarterback. Zach Calzada is who I thought would be the favorite to win it. And also they got a kid by the name of Cutter Boley, who's also vying for this spot. This is a huge year for Mark Stoops, and we had a great conversation on Overreaction Monday yesterday. And Nino, I don't know even now how we got to this segment, but we kind of got into a segment, and this wasn't even announced. It wasn't even something that we had in our script. But, during that segment, we started to talk about coaches that should be on the hot seat, but for whatever reason, we won't place them on the hot seat. And we start talking about Lance Leopold, and I think he's done an amazing job in Lawrence. And I've never even considered him to be on the hot seat, considering that the resources in Lawrence are starting to be plentiful with the pledge from David Booth, right? So I never even looked at Lance Leopold as a hot seat option just because he's so beloved in Lawrence. So even with, the ideology that, hey, the Big 12 is for the open, especially after Texas and Oklahoma left a year ago, the thought should be, hey, we can win the Big 12, but when is mediocrity not enough? And that's what I really started to think about. And even after that discussion, I say Lance Leopold is nowhere near the hot seat because he's just that beloved. You know what I'm saying? Mark Stoops, on the other hand, is a guy, Kentucky has always been like a blue blood basketball program. And, he's brung some relevancy to the program. And, they're gonna compete. And sometimes competing is enough, but he has to get this quarterback thing right. He does. And I'm not sure what other people think about Kentucky this year. I would love for them to be good, but I think there are teams that are catching up with them. They're going to always be competitive, but can they stack on wins? That's the question that I have when I think about Kentucky. Can they stack on wins? How does this roster correlate to the rest of the gauntlet of the SEC? Because we know their rosters all across the board have gotten better. I even think the team in Starkville is going to be better this year. Vandy wants to be better this year. You look at a team like South Carolina, they could be competing for the conference. Florida's going to be much improved this year. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's got something working. They're going to be right there in the thick of things. So when you start looking at this Kentucky job, Mark Stoops has done a phenomenal job there as far as making them relevant, and his teams do compete. But when will that not be enough? Especially when you got a guy like Ed Orgeron who wants to become a coach again. And speaking of which, we're going to head right into our second into the news story. Coach O wants back in. And his exit in Baton Rouge wasn't cool. Like, it wasn't cool at all. It was like one of those things that it was like a mutual type of thing. Everybody knew he'll be leaving. Definitely, delivered a national championship in 2019. But I think a lot of the brass down there probably didn't like how Ed Orgeron went about or conducted his business. And, he's the type of guy, you going to always know where he stands. And he ain't going to back it down from nothing. And I think a lot of times we have a coach that's like that. People who feel like they want a stronger hold, a stronger grasp of the program are probably going to have an issue with it. And Brian Kelly is the coach now, and this roster is really talented. We're going to talk about that team when we get to my college football playoff segment. But I started to think, okay, where should he coach? Like, should he come right back to the SEC? Because there may be a job open in, Fayetteville, Arkansas, with Sam Pittman on the hot seat. Is Mark Stoops on the hot seat? There may be a job available in Kentucky, but there'll be jobs available across the country. And, of course, he's going to want to go back to the gauntlet that is the SEC. But if there's a job opening in the Big Ten or a job opening in a Big 12 or ACC, would he consider it, or does he automatically want to go back to the SEC to kind of get some payback on LSU? That's my thoughts. If he wants back in, he will be coaching next year 100%. When we look at the coaches carousel, there's a lot of coaches I'm really considering. One of them is Jamie Chadwell at Liberty. If they're able to string together wins, I think they'll be able to string together wins. You got to watch out for him because he had a lot of success at Coastal as well. Then you look at a lot of these guys who are under 40. Somebody like a Glenn Schumann, the type of defense he has had. And the game is getting younger and younger. So you have to figure, he'll be a part of it. Will Stein, he would have to be a part of this upcoming coaches carousel. There's a lot of guys who, Kane Womack is another great guy. How long will Zach Kitley be at FAU? Because it's not an if, it's a when. And it's not a win, because he won't do good. It's a win because he'll do well, because his track record shows he will do well. Texas Tech problem was defense last year. Zach Kitley was their coordinator. They were able to put up points. We know what he was able to do at Western Kentucky. How long would he be there? Because I'm telling you, if FAU mess around and win 9 or 10 games and, cusp of the American Championship, if you think Zach Kitley not going to get looks because you already know how he's able to develop quarterbacks, you know what I'm saying, being who he is, you just have to think that, hey, there's going to be teams that want him if they're able to have the success. And at his age and that he breathes it, you will have to give him a look. Syracuse hands QB1 job to Steve Angeli. This was a surprise to me. It really was, and I guess the reason I was surprised because I was at ACC Media Days, as you guys know. We were live from Radio Row, and Rickie Collins was there. So the thought I had was okay, after the spring, Rickie Collins must be leading, right? And then, of course, Steve Angeli, he was a late window transfer there. And I'm okay, he must have got this in the bag, must have the trust of his coaches for him to be able to come to ACC Media Days. So when I saw this, the thought was, okay, it's not surprising. Because if you see the skill set that Steve Angeli has, he definitely has the ability to throw the ball, and he actually does it at a higher clip than Rickie Collins. Rickie Collins just give you, I think, a little bit more of a dual threat ability. So this was a surprise. But, it's another great conversation we had. Overreaction Monday, if you missed that episode over at the CFB Nation, please check that out. We had great conversation. It was all football talk, wasn't no fluff. And we really just had great conversations about college football. And a lot of times, you don't always get that because sometimes it's we're not agreeing on things. So sometimes the debate becomes, more than the content. You know what I mean? Because you want to get your point across because we all love and we all passionate. And that's not a bad thing at all. But yesterday, we just had a great conversation about college football. So if you haven't seen that episode or Reaction Monday, check it out. We just talked college football and I loved it. Buckeyes officially handing the keys to Julian Sayin. This was the overwhelming thought. I thought I was probably one of the few people who believed it was an actual real competition. I know Jalen said it. Nino said it. I believe D-Now said it. They said this is Julian Sayin's job. A lot of people who said, hey, from what they're hearing, this is Julian Sayin's job. I looked at the spring. I also looked at, a little bit of fall camp. And I'm saying Lincoln Conhos. And this was my opinion on it. It's like Andre Iguodala said as it pertains to the NBA. If you go on the road, Game 7, against a well-liked team like Miami is who he was talking about, in order to win by 1, you got to win by 15 because you got to beat the refs, right? I take that same approach to this. Hey, everybody wanted Julian Sayin, to be the starting quarterback, right? That's kind of what I was hearing. But in order for Lincoln Conhos to win a job, he had to win by a landslide. It couldn't have been close. And that's how I feel. But don't be surprised if he gets an opportunity to play because they do have some, after the Texas game, I think they play 2 very winnable games. Really easy games. I didn't want to say that. One is against Grambling, and I forgot who the other one is. Again, so he'll have opportunities to play. And, we'll be watching. And is this as bad as the 2023 season? The handling of Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. Speaking of Devin Brown, bro, I feel so bad for that guy, man. I really do. Cal did bring both quarterbacks to ACC Media Days, which is something that's not foreign. If you've watched this show before, you've heard me say how a lot of teams will bring 2 quarterbacks if they're in the middle of a quarterback battle. But I feel for Devin Brown. Him and Jalen had one of my favorite interviews through this past media day cycle. My favorite one was probably Coach Wilcox and Moon, the conversation that they had. And just because like the passion that they led with. And it's interesting because a lot of times when you doing interviews, you want your interview to be the one you remember most, but it wasn't. My favorite interview from this cycle was definitely probably Bud Clark and then Zach Kittley when I had the opportunity to sit down with him at American Media Days. But I feel for Devin Brown. I really do. Because the kid he's a leader. I'm not sure why it isn't resulting on the field, but, just hearing the conversation and some of the stuff he was doing out Cal and the camaraderie that they have. But that doesn't mean he won't get his opportunity. Because Cal, I think they have the ability to be bowl eligible this year, but he should get some chances. He really should, but I just feel for him. So, with our next one, number 5, Clemson transfer won't suit up for Liberty. So, Marquise Henderson, and I don't know any intel about this. I don't. Typically, I'm around Clemson enough to hear it, but I don't know what happened with Marquise Henderson, why he ultimately decided to enter the portal and head to Liberty. And then to hear he's not playing for Liberty this year, that was really confusing. So I'm not sure what's going on. He put up a lot of stats in high school. He's an explosive running back, and I thought he could have competed this year. Maybe not for a starting job with Clemson, but, the ability to see some playing time this year and being a spell this year, I thought he could have absolutely done that. But I would love to hear more about this story and exactly what happened or exactly what's going on. Because, outside looking in, it just look like this kid is the problem. But sometimes they don't tell the whole story. He could have something going on at home, and he just really needs to be home. So we don't know the full story. I'm not going to speculate. But I thought he would be a great fit for Jamie Chadwell, especially after Quentin Cooley was gone. But they got some production there, and that's another team we'll talk a little bit about later. Tennessee names Joey Aguilar QB1. The minute I saw this, I was outside and I started thinking to myself, like, this thing could possibly work out. If he can play similarly to how he played in 2023 in Boone, but being able to limit the turnovers. I'm not high on Tennessee this year. I'm not, but it was interesting seeing Herb Street say that he wouldn't be shocked if Aguilar lit it up this year in Knoxville. I'm not high on Tennessee because I truly feel like they mismanaged this situation. I truly do feel that way. And there's no doubt in my mind that they mismanaged the situation. And I know the fans in Knoxville are going to say, well, you just going to let a player who's becoming a cancer player on your team? No. If I knew there was a cancer beforehand, I would have just got rid of him sooner, right? That would have been my thought process. That way I can get somebody in there. But Joey Aguilar, he's going to compete. That's one thing I know about him. High IQ. He had to learn, 3 playbooks or no 3 playbooks in the last 9 months between UCLA, Tennessee, and App State. So it's just, I don't know, it's just some interesting things that cross my mind when I think about Tennessee. Boot Carter situation, the handling of the Nico Iamaleava situation, Blurgate, which still is weird in my mind, even though J.D. Piquel solved the case. I don't know. A lot of it is just weird to me, to be honest with you. Let's head to our next segment, Governor Reacts. Alrighty, so for our Governor React segment, we are going to talk about AP preseason All-Americans. This should be a fun segment. I love this time of year where we start getting this type of intel and information. Let's see here real quick. My apologies. Boom, boom. Didn't realize in the midst of things I didn't change it. But alrighty, here we go. AP All-Americans. I'll give you guys a listen in a second. Not sure if you all seen this or not, but like I said, I love reacting to these type of things. It's one of those things as a college football fan, especially when you're in the off season. It's one of those things that keep you going. So let's get right into it. So we're gonna look at the first team offense. Let me know how you guys feel in the comment section. Is there anybody you would have considered changing them with? So first team All-Americans offense. This is AP poll. These are not my rankings, but I will give my opinion on it. Alrighty, we got Cade Klubnik, quarterback Clemson. You figured it'd have been him or Garrett Nussmeier. That's the way I look at it. Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame. Nick Singleton, Penn State. It's hard to argue with a lot of these first-team picks. I'm just going to be honest with you. Spencer Fano is everybody's All-American. That was easy. Caden Proctor, that was easy. Olaf Vega, I own Penn State. That's easy. Armaj Reed Adams, that's easy. And then Slaughter, who you guys know I speak very, very proudly of. because I believe in Florida this year. And the tight end Eli Stowers, it's really hard to compete with this. It really is. Like, you know what I'm saying, up until this point. Then you got Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver, Ryan Williams at wide receiver, Jordan Tyson at wide receiver, all-purpose, Desmond Reed. Not surprising. I could have seen Damon Claiborne from Wake Forest in that spot as well. And then kicker Dominic Zvada. It's hard to argue with this list. You could say, well, here, there, you may prefer this person over that person. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's just extremely hard to argue with this. So, first team All-Americans defense. We got edge, Dylan Stewart, South Carolina. Like that one. Colin Simmons from Texas, edge. He's really good. Defensive tackle Peter Woods, Clemson. Zane Durant, Penn State is on here. Interesting. Anthony Hill at linebacker. Whit Weeks at linebacker. My dog, Cal Lewis, made first team all defense. I'm happy about that. Kyle Lewis is a dog if you haven't seen him play at Pitt. He's really good. Cornerbacks Leonard Moore, Notre Dame, and Jermon McCoy. You guys have heard me talk highly of Jermon McCoy. I think he's the best cornerback in the business. He is coming off ACL injury, so we have to see how that goes. Caleb Downs, Ohio State. Dylan Denneman, the Purdue transfer, who's now at Oregon. Michael Tadd from Texas. Punter Brett Thorson. So this is where it gets interesting. We start looking at the second team All-Americans, and this is, I think, where we have an opportunity to kind of cherry pick and say, well, hey, I prefer this person over that person. Boom. Second team, you got Garrett Nussmeier. Like I said, it's Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier. You pick your poison, who you like better, right? Mekhi Hughes, Oregon. Isaac Brown, Louisville. There's a couple other options we had here. You got Bryson Washington from Baylor. You got Quintarion Wisner from Texas. There's a few other places you could have went here, but I'm a huge fan of Isaac Brown. And you guys know I'm also a huge fan of Duke Watson, who's Isaac Brown's spell at Louisville. Mekhi Hughes, it's hard to argue with the production he had last year. And, you know, it's just really difficult. Francis Maagua from Miami. Of course, he'll be on this list. Blake Miller from Clemson. He's on this list. Caden Green, Missouri. He was on, I think, preseason All-American list last year. Keelan Rutledge, Georgia Tech. Parker Brailsford, Alabama. Really hard to argue with that offensive line. I ain't mad at it at all. Tight end Max Clear. I like Zach Entries. I really do. Kid from Cal who's now at Texas. I like him at that spot. Man, Max Clear is not a bad spot at all. Antonio Williams, Elijah Surratt, Cam Coleman. These are who you kind of expect to be for this second team. But I've always had this conversation that I think Antonio Williams is spectacular. Also think more spectacular, but my favorite Clemson receiver is Westco. Something that I've always said. And then all-purpose is Katron Allen for Penn State. I don't agree with that. If you didn't put Damon Claiborne as all-purpose, you know, for the first team, I guess they just wanted to have Katron Allen a part of it. But in my opinion, if we want to really talk about the all-purpose term, it should have been Damon Claiborne from Wake Forest, because he's a dog, but a lot of people don't know it because, you know, Wake hasn't been good, but he's spectacular if you haven't checked him out. I can even see Josh Cameron, because he's effective in a punt return game as well for Baylor, so I can even see him being on this. But I don't agree with Katron Allen as all-purpose. I don't. He's a great running back, don't get me wrong. I actually prefer him over Nick Singleton, to be honest with you. But, you know, when we talk about all-purpose, you know, getting it done in a return game, you know, catching the ball out of the backfield, and just being really like a utility tool for your program to use, I'm putting Damon Claiborne over him. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's how I feel about that. Second team
defense. TJ Parker, I thought would be first team, but I understand why they did it. Mateo Uiagalelei, Oregon. We known he was up here. I'm surprised he wasn't first team. Tim Keenan, Alabama. Christian Miller, Georgia. Torian York, who's got a lot of hype this preseason cycle. Texas A&M, Harold Perkins, LSU. Aiden Fisher, Indiana. Chandler Rivers, we knew he would come up on this list at some point. D'Angelo Pons. That's good to see. He's getting some love. Corey Parrish, Minnesota. KJ Bolden, we figured he'd be up here. And Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina. Punter Ryan Eckley. Those are our preseason All-Americans. Overall, how you guys liking this list? It's not really much I would change, to be honest with you. It really isn't. I think the AP did a pretty good job with this. There's a couple no-brainers, especially when you get to the first team, like Caleb Downs. I think he's the best player in all of college football. He's a no-brainer. Whit Weeks, Kyle Lewis, no-brainers. Leonard Moore is a no-brainer. Colin Simmons, Dylan Stewart, no-brainers. Peter Woods is a no-brainer. Like, you know, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, Jordan Tyson, those are all no-brainers. Now, there may be other players you prefer to, see up there, but in the grand scheme of things, they're no-brainers. They really are. On the offensive side of the ball for first team, Jake Slaughter is a no-brainer. Olava Vega, that's probably a no-brainer. Fano and Proctor, they're the best tackles in the business. It'll be interesting to see who goes first in the draft. Nick Singleton, Jeremiah Love, really no-brainers. If you wanted to, change Nick Singleton with his running mate, you could if you wanted to. But they got this right. Cade Klubnik, first team offense, yes. I think they got this right for the most part. It's just little places here and there that I would consider changing. But, other than that, not too shabby. If you haven't heard, we are going on tour this season. I forgot to make the graphic. I will make the graphic after this episode is over. And we're calling it the We Cover the Nation Tour. Excited about that. Already told you guys week 0. I am 100% going to Atlanta for the Swag MEAC Challenge. Week 1, Thursday, we'll be at Miami of Ohio. Friday, I'm not sure where we'll be. I'm sorry, it's Wisconsin versus Miami of Ohio, but it's in Madison. So we'll definitely be at that game. Not this Thursday, not like 2 days from the day, but 8 days from the day. That'll kick off our week 1. I'm not sure what we're doing on Friday. Saturday, Sunday, we'll be in Atlanta for the Aflac kickoff. So that'll be for the Syracuse, Tennessee game Saturday. Sunday, that will be the Beamer Bowl, which is Virginia Tech versus South Carolina. And I think both of those games are going to be better than advertised. I really do. And I think the ACC has a legitimate chance in both of those games, to be honest with you guys. Monday, we are headed to Chapel Hill. We're going to go to TCU, North Carolina game. North Carolina is real weird about how they hand out credentials. They really are. They are really, they prefer to give them to the people that's been there for a while, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we'll probably just end up going ahead and paying and go to the game. Like, we love college football that much. So that's how this week is going to go. Friday, not like 3 days from the day, but more like 10 days from the day. When I have more information about that, I'll get that to you all. So we're going to go ahead and take a commercial break real quick. And then when we get back, we're going to unveil this this bracket. A lot of y'all going to be frustrated, but it's okay. Y'all going to get over it. I promise you it is. We'll be back right after these messages. Look at you out here using all these other sports books, and you ain't even using the best one. BetUS, get 125% match bonus when you use the promo code CFB Nation. Yeah, you heard me correctly. 125% match bonus on your first deposit using that code CFB Nation. We know that college football is in the off season, even though we don't celebrate that. CFB Nation, we do college football 24/7, but there are plenty of things for you guys to bet on.
Who will have the most wins? OKC Thunder or Cleveland Cavaliers? Can Luka and LeBron make it all mesh to make it to the play-in tournament? Maybe you're a college basketball guy ready to risk it all for Florida to make it to the big dance.
Basketball isn't for you? Maybe you're a football guy. Well, BetUS got you covered with this year's UEFA Championship. Can Liverpool or Barcelona win it all? Will Erling Haaland or Harry Kane lead their teams to victory?
May is going to get popping when the Kentucky Derby hits town. BetUS has you covered in that way too, with all major horse racing events. Point is, type in that promo code CFB Nation and go get that money.
And we are back, as I'm getting a lot of emails and messages right now, but we are back. Governor ruling. This is the big enchilada. This deserved 30 plus minutes to talk about this playoff bracket. Some of these teams really pulled on my heartstrings, and you guys gonna find out a lot about it. So as far as the opening round bracket, here it is. If you guys can see it, maybe I got a better screen here, in which I do. So we got a better screen than you. So we're gonna talk about the teams that I have, my thought process. We're going to take our time with this. So just sit back, relax. If you love college football, you're going to enjoy this. So the number 1 overall team heading into this playoff is Texas. And it's funny because I had them initially number 1 in my post-spring college football rankings. But then the more I studied Clemson, the more I studied Penn State, and the more I compared and contrasted the rosters, the more I was like, I think I like Penn State and Clemson roster more than I like Texas roster. But Texas is still going to be dangerous. They're still going to find a way to win games. And Steve Sarkisian has truly got the job done there. I think whomever wins the SEC championship should probably or will probably be the number 1 automatic seed unless you have a situation in which we had last season where Oregon went 13-0, won their conference championship, and then of course you had to make them number one in the college football playoff, right? You can't argue with that at all. So Texas is my number one overall team. My number two overall team, I was fighting with Clemson. I was fighting with Penn State. And the reason I was fighting with those two teams because my thought process was, alrighty, Clemson has the easiest gauntlet out of any of these teams I have in my top four. They have the easiest gauntlet. Playing in the ACC, they just truly have the easiest gauntlet. I do believe there's a couple teams that can compete with them in the ACC, but overall, yes, I had to look at their gauntlet. I look at Penn State gauntlet. Even with one loss, and let's say Clemson runs the table, I still think Penn State will probably be rated higher. Penn State has an amazing roster, and for some reason, a lot of people really don't like Penn State. I think a lot of that has to deal with James Franklin and your opinion on James Franklin. And the record shows that he struggles in these big games. The record is what the record is. We can't run away from that. We can't shy from that. But when it's your time, it's your time. How many people doubted Ryan Day before he won it all last year, right? I mean, even after the Michigan game, and they had a spectacular season, but losing that Michigan game, being out of the Big Ten Conference Championship, you know how many people were upset at Ryan Day? They'd be like, yo, like, what's going on? This is the game and we can't win. And you knew what they're going to do and we still couldn't win, right? So that was the overall thought about them. So yes, I got Penn State at 2. Love the roster construction for Penn State. I love what they have at the coordinator, offensive coordinator being in Andy Kotelnicki. Love what they had at defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles. He's disgruntled and he's frustrated. And I believe he's coming for blood this year. And I do have Penn State winning the Big Ten. Coming in at number 3 is Clemson. I've already talked about Clemson. My belief in Dabo Swinney is through the roof because it wasn't always there. I remember after a pretty rough 2022 and 2023 season, and rough by Clemson standards and the standard that was set by Dabo Swinney, I think questions starting to arise like, hey, you guys need to help at wide receiver. A kid that they got in Tallahassee and Keon Coleman was available to go get, and you didn't go get him. So that's when we started to look at this. But, you know, now that I look at this team, number one in return in production, right? And they, you know, have the highest clip of players graduating, and they always graduate with the highest GPA. That's all through FBS. Any other 136 teams, Clemson is always at the tops of that list, right? So you look at what he's building, and he's doing it his way. And he's truly showing you that it can be done his way, the old way. Recruit your players out of high school, develop them. I think he has grabbed like 1 or 2 transfers the last couple years, but that's not his thing. He preferred to develop his players. He preferred to have a tight-knit relationship, and it's something that reeks throughout, you know, when you go to Clemson. You see that it's family-oriented, 100%. So that's my number 3 team. Number 4, Florida Gators. So one thing I like about this new format, the old format, this wouldn't have been allowed, right? So you would have had to have, you know, the winner, you know, the top 4 highest rated conference champions would have been up there. This new system that no longer exists. And this is something I like. And picking my teams from the SEC was extremely difficult, right? Because I have a clear omission who some people are not, I shouldn't even say some. A lot of people had winning their national championship in LSU. I don't have them on here. Another team, if you guys haven't paid attention yet, isn't on here, is Oregon. And it's like, yo, you betting against Dan Lannon? You betting against that 35-6 record? You betting against the resources being plentiful? And what he's been able to do out there as far as building that SEC team out west, are you going to bet against that? Yes. And it sucks to say, it really does. But yes, I want to bet against that. I really am. Like, I feel like Dante Moore should have had this quarterback competition locked up. He doesn't, clearly, according to Pete Thamel. It'd be interesting to see if him or Austin Novosad ends up winning the starting spot with the injuries they have at wide receiver. Now, if DeCorian Moore comes in and he kills it, then I will instantly regret that decision. I really will, because they do got Mekhi Hughes winning at is the spell back there. They have talent there, and that defense is playing really well. Like I said, they're really starting to look at that SEC team out west that Dan Lanning truly wanted to build. But that is another omission that I think may end up getting me in the end. But I'll talk to you through my process and who was my last 2 teams and why I picked the other team. Coming in at the number 5 slot is Ohio State. I still like what Ohio State has to offer. How quickly does Matt Patricia pick up the college game? Because there's some nuances that's just different at the collegiate level. And a lot of people don't want to admit it, but there's different nuances. Like, one of the things is how wide the hash marks are, right? So if you are on the short side of the field, right, but the wide side of the field, you have a bunch to that side, there's more grass to cover. It is. In the college, I feel like game, even though it's still 50 yards wide, just like the NFL game, I feel like they use more of the field. I think that's just, it is what it is. So how quickly would he pick up that and figure out the nuances there? That's my question. Also, they got a new offensive coordinator, Hartline, right? So how well will he pick things up? He's got a plethora of talent there, right? Don't get it twisted. Don't get me wrong by any stretch of the imagination, right? But how quickly will these coaches be able to make these adjustments, right? That's my question. But, I mean, if you look at the talent, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell take, two of the best receivers in the country, arguably the best wide receiver room in the country, right? And if Brandon Inez can come, a lot of people think he will come, look out. And then the running back rooms probably be a running back by committee. They got the kid James Peoples, also got C.J. Donaldson. Julian Sayin has been named the starting quarterback. The offensive line is always going to play well in Columbus. The defense, I've said it before, I said it again, Caleb Downs is the best player in college football. I know some people think it's Jeremiah Smith. That's cool, too. Great answer. It's hard to argue that answer, but for my money, Caleb Downs is the best player in all of college football, and there's no doubt about it for me. So there's some other things I think about Ohio State, but once we start talking about these games, I'll get to it. They did lose an abundance of production to the NFL. That's one of the things that have crossed my mind. Coming in at my number 6 seed, we have Alabama. I believe in Alabama a lot. I'm probably higher on Alabama than most. I really think this Ty Simpson kid is going to turn it around. There's parts of my mind that think they can win the SEC. There's really some parts of my mind. The SEC, I feel like it's a little bit more jumbled up than it has been in years past. Like, you can make an argument for Georgia, argument for LSU. Even though I don't have them in here, there's certainly an argument there for them. There's an argument for Florida, right? Argument for South Carolina. I also don't have them in here. There's arguments there for teams that aren't in here. I just don't think they get 5 teams in. I saw JD Piquel's bracket. I really like his bracket. I just don't think SEC gets 5 teams in. Unless they're feeling bad about last year only allowing 3 teams in and then they get 5 teams in. Because I believe he had Texas A&M in on his bracket as well. So my number 5 seed, Ohio State. 6 seed is Alabama. I like a lot what Alabama got to offer. I'll talk more about them once we get into these independent matchups. My number 7 seed is Notre Dame. This is the seed that I was fighting either Notre Dame or Oregon. And this was a back and forth fight. If you guys remember my post-spring college football playoff bracket, I didn't have Notre Dame in. I had Oregon in instead of Notre Dame, right? And if there are 2 teams I'm looking at on this bracket that I don't feel the most confident about, Notre Dame being one, I'm interested to see how this quarterback thing plays out. But they're going to play physically and they're going to play outstanding defense. And they do have an incredible mind at offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock. So I really do believe in them. But Louisville was the other team. I'm like, yo, should Oregon be in over Louisville, right? But I feel strongly about Louisville. We'll talk a little bit more about them when we get to that spot. But Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman is truly figuring it out. I feel like they have. It's not as difficult as the G5 team that's got to make it, like that crabs in the barrel type of mindset. But because they don't play in a conference, it is difficult, right? Make no mistake about it. Coming up, number 8 seed, this shouldn't surprise anyone. It's Baylor. I got Baylor winning the Big 12. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I feel strongly about Baylor. And for a myriad of reasons, I feel strongly about Baylor. But I think, again, because of cannibalization in the Big 12, because they have a strong middle class in the Big 12, whomever wins the Big 12, they'll probably be the only team to make it. And there'll probably be a bunch of teams that's crumbled up there, and we get into the last 2 weeks and be like, yo, who gonna be the 2 teams that's playing for the championship? I think that's how it looks. I think if Baylor can start fast, they finished incredibly strong last year, but if they can start fast this year with that Jake Spavital offense, their offensive coordinator, look out. I really like this team a lot. I think they'll win the Big 12, and I have them locked as my 8 seed. Coming in at number 9, we have UGA. What is there not to like about UGA, right? UGA is another team that can certainly win the SEC. They really can. If Gunnar Stockton can be formidable, don't turn the ball over, pick up first down with his legs every now and then, they're going to be good, bro. The wide receiver core is good. They got a 1-2 punch at running back, and Nate Frazier and Josh McCray, kid they got from Champaign, from Illinois. I like Georgia a lot. Georgia can very well win the SEC. I think the hardest thing about this bracket was omitting Oregon, first and foremost, omitting LSU, and then picking the teams that are coming out the SEC because I believe a lot of them are going to be good. It was hard for me to keep Oklahoma out of my bracket because I feel strongly about them. Oh, by the way, the Gauntlet League, in which I'm in, there's about 20 some odd teams there. I won a national championship yesterday. My trophy is on the way. I'm gonna show y'all too when the trophy gets here. In that league with Oklahoma, John Mateer running the ball, playing stout defense. We won the championship. We killed in the playoffs. I was the number 11 seed. I had a forced loss against Texas because I was out of town. And then my only true loss was to Alabama. Bro beat the crap out of me. He happened not to make the playoffs. So I was like, yeah, I got a chance. So I was able to win that one. So shout out to me. Shout out to Oklahoma for winning that one. Coming in at number 10, Louisville. I believe in Louisville. I believe in Jeff Brom. If there's a team that can compete with Clemson in this conference, it is 100% Louisville. Why? Because they play 8 games at home. You know what that means? That means that their gauntlet is going to be super easy. They're not going to leave their house a lot. And the only 4 games they have on the road is the ones that the ACC decide that they have to play on the road, because you have to play 4 conference games on the road because they play an 8-game conference schedule. This is something that I like. There's another team who has something similar, but they got 7 home games, and that's Illinois. 8 home games, right? Got a huge gift from Kentucky and Vince Marrow that's going to be their general manager. I like this Louisville team a lot. I'll talk a little bit more about them later, but I just wanted to introduce you guys to my playoff. Coming in number 11 is Illinois. Illinois, another team I feel fantastic about. I like the makeup of this team. They have lost some production, especially at wide receiver. Pat Bryant's gone. Zakari Franklin is gone. But they did get a huge get in the portal from West Virginia and Hunter Clement. I think their running back game is going to be formidable. And I think that Barry Lunny Jr. and Luke Altmaier connection is underrated. And Luke Altmaier played clutch in a lot of moments last year. But because you guys probably didn't see some of those games, you don't know how clutch he was last year. He played phenomenal in the clutch last year. So shout out to Illinois. Coming in at number 12 is Liberty. This was another one of those really difficult picks because Liberty has to be perfect this year. That's the only way they're in this bracket because they have the easiest schedule in the country. Out of all 136 teams, they got the 136 easiest schedule, right? Or most difficult schedule. So yeah, they're good. They do got a game against JMU that's must win, and JMU is gonna be really good this year. And the other teams that crossed my mind was Boise, of course, but UNLV. It was really hard to pick Liberty over UNLV because I believe that if Liberty is 12-1, let's say they lose to JMU, win their conference championship. Let's say UNLV got 2 losses, but they won their conference, they will get the nod over Liberty. Liberty has to be perfect. So I'm betting on them to have no mistakes this year, which is difficult, right? So those are my 12 teams in my bracket, and we'll slowly go through this bracket. This is just the introductory bracket. That is Texas at 1, Penn State at 2, Clemson at 3, Florida at 4. They have the buys. First round home games, we got Liberty versus Ohio State in Columbus. We got Georgia heading to Waco to play Baylor. We got Illinois heading to Tuscaloosa to play Bama. We got Louisville heading to South Bend to play the Fighting Irish. So decent slate of games, especially once you get to the quarterfinals and the semifinals. We have some really good games on this board. Let's go ahead and move to our next screen where we go ahead and advance this first round, and I'll tell you who won each game, and I'll give you details about each game as well. Let's go ahead and do that now. Alrighty. So here's our next screen. We'll get into each game, and I'll tell you, what my belief system is and why I believe certain teams are going to win certain games, right? Let's get right into it. So, base bracket, already run over that. So, number 12, Liberty versus Ohio State. Liberty was my G5 pick. I told you UNLV almost got that slot because I believe in the Dan Mullen experience. I believe the swagger that he's going to bring to UNLV. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about Boise State, but UNLV is going to be right there in the thick of things in the Mountain West. And watch out for Fresno because they got some FCS guys who are hungry. And I mean that from the coaching staff. They are hungry and show that, hey, we belong here. Liberty schedule, easiest in the country. For them, like I said earlier, it's 13-0 bus. A 12-1 record won't cut it. I think Jamie Chadwell is coaching his last season, in the G5 ranks. I guess we should say G6 because Pac-12 is definitely going to be a G6 team, right? I think this is his last season if it goes as I predict. I think he's done an outstanding job at Coastal. And in Lynchburg, he's done a great job as well. And if they go 13-0, he's gone. Ethan Vasco should really flourish in his system. NC State transfer running back Julian Gray gives them a weapon at running back to replace Quentin Cooley, who was there for the last few years. Got to see him the last couple years there. And I think Ethan Vasco can deliver. Caden Salter did not want to be there last year. Nobody can tell me differently. The way he performed in 2023, he deserved a shot at the P4 ranks. He truly did. But, it is what it is. It didn't happen, but I believe with Ethan Vasco, I think this team is going to be really good. And their biggest hurdle is that Week 4 game versus James Madison. If they win that, they run the table, they'll win Con USA. But with that being said, they are no match for Ohio State. Absolutely no match for Ohio State. Like, this game is an ugly game. And when you start getting people typing on Twitter like, do G5 really deserve a game? Because Ohio State is going to beat the brakes off of them. Ohio State advances. They are now in the quarterfinals. Up next, we got a really good 9-8 matchup with Georgia and Baylor. This, to me, is that classic 8-9 toss-up, but, you know, two programs on different trajectories. We know Georgia has been a staple. Kirby Smart is the best coach in the sport. And I love the makeup of both of these teams, but Baylor is my pick to win the Big 12. You guys already know how I feel about Sawyer Robinson. I believe he's going to soar up the draft boards. I seen something, a quarterback, top 25 quarterbacks for the 2026 NFL draft. He wasn't even in it. And the disrespect is real because this guy's a legit 6'3", 6'4", and he can play, bro. He can play. And he can scramble a little bit as well. So, and I think with that attack and that Jake Spavital offense, and I like his offense a lot, he runs a variation of the air raid that's a little bit different from everybody else's variation of the air raid. But that's the beautiful thing about the air raid. Josh Cameron is a guy at wide receiver. He really is. He really is. He's a stud, all-purpose guy. He's nice in the return game. And then I really like a sneaky portal addition of Kobe Prentice from Alabama. With tight end Mike Trigg, the weapons are good. He has plenty of people to throw the ball to. And then Bryson Washington is a bell cow at running back. I hate the fact that Pendergrass is out for the season because he offered so much balance to this offense. But Skaggs and them boys going to have to step it up. That's the depth behind Pendergrass, right? Georgia's stacked too, though. Gunnar Stockton, I think he's going to take a big step this year. This wide receiver room, probably the best we've seen in years with Branch, Bill, and Thomas. And we look at the running back duo of Nate Frazier and Josh McCray. Don't they complement each other so well? When you look at the silky smoothness of Frazier and then Josh McCray, he's looking to run you over, bro. Like, that's the way, I feel like that's how he feels. But as you see on my screen right now, Baylor advances. This is one of those games that I feel like Waco is going to really show up and show out. And it's going to be a crazy atmosphere. And they'll probably win it like walk-off field goal fashion. Because I think last year, the Big 12 showed that they can compete. Because Texas truly had an opportunity to lose at Arizona State last year. Some calls don't go their way. They definitely had a chance to lose. But yeah, Baylor advances. And then Baylor has advanced to the semifinal. I'm sorry, to the quarterfinals. Illinois versus Alabama. It's that 6-11 matchup. SEC juggernaut against a well-prepared Big Ten underdog. On paper, it looks lopsided, but Illinois plays smart and tough. Brett Bielema, if you're going to play for a Brett Bielema coach team, you're going to play smart. You're going to play with a great deal of discipline, and you're going to be tough. And we saw that in the game versus South Carolina last year, right? In a bowl game where Shane Beamer was hot, boy. If he had the opportunity to fight Brett Bielema that day, they would have fought. 100% they would have fought. No doubt in my mind. But Illinois is going to play with a great deal of discipline. They're going to play smart. And the one thing I think we don't do is give enough credit to Luke Altmaier. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't. Like, I'm a huge fan, though, of both of these programs. If this game was on neutral field, I'd give Illinois a chance. It really was. But can you imagine? Just imagine with me for a second. Can you imagine what that playoff atmosphere in Tuscaloosa is going to be like at Bryant-Denny Stadium? Yo, you're not going to be able to hear. You're going to have to turn your TV down. And if you're at the game, yeah, good luck. Your ears are going to be ringing all day the next day, right? This is neutral site. I will give Illinois a fighting chance because it's not. I just can't because it's going to be in Tuscaloosa. Ty Simpson has emerged as a guy, quarterback for Alabama. Jam Miller will be back healthy by this time. And that wide receiver room, I know a lot of people talk about Ohio State. You know, Auburn has a really good wide receiver room as well. But, you know, Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and Isaiah Horton, that's a good combination of wide receivers. And might be one of the best in the country. And then Kane Womack, we know what he's going to do on the defense side of the ball as their conductor defensively, as their defensive coordinator. And then, you know, that's anchored by Deontay Lawson. And like I said, Illinois will be ready. I really like Luke Altmaier. I think he's criminally underrated. Hustle Clement is a legit guy at wide receiver that they got over from West Virginia. And the running back duo of Aiden Lowry and Caden Fegan, they're going to be okay. They really will. Defensively, Gabe Jacques is a stud. You look at Barry Lundy Jr., Luke Altmaier, that combination is a really good combination. When we talk about what I love to talk about, that coordinator-quarterback duo, I love to analyze that. I kind of overanalyze that. Luke Altmaier does not get enough credit for being clutch. He had so many clutch moments last year. The Purdue game, I know. They shouldn't have been in a close game with Purdue. He was clutch. Rutgers game, I know. Should have been in a close game with Rutgers. He was clutch. Also, what was it? It was another game. The Nebraska game. They had every reason to lose that game. Luke Altmaier was clutch in that game. But Alabama advances. They are now on the quarterfinals. Louisville versus Notre Dame. This was a difficult game to choose. It was so difficult to choose. It really is because one, I think the makeup of both of these teams are similar. And this game is in South Bend. We know it'll be cold. If this game was neutral site, I'd have went with Louisville. But because it's in South Bend, that crowd is going to be raucous like it was last year when they played Indiana in the playoffs. Really, two great disciplined teams. They prefer to run and rock. And no matter who's going to be at quarterback, whether it's Minchie or Carr, I think they'll have them ready. I truly do believe that. Like I say, if this neutral site, I'm 100% going with Louisville. I love what Louisville has to offer at the wide receiver room. Isaac Brown is legit, but Duke Watson may be one of the most underrated running backs in the sport. He's really good. He averaged like 10 yards per carry last year. He's one of those big play guys. If you get a lane, look out. That's the type of running back he is. So I really wanted to pick Louisville this game, but I'm going to go with Notre Dame at home. Notre Dame advances. So now we're looking at the quarterfinals. So let's go ahead and advance it to the quarterfinal screen. Alrighty, so matchups we have here. We have Ohio State versus Florida in our 4-5 matchup. Our 1-8 matchup is Texas versus Baylor. These are all neutral site games. These will be bowl games. Quarterfinals, we have Clemson versus Alabama. And then we also have Penn State versus Notre Dame. So we know that Texas is off a bye. They got to scout and do everything they needed to do, right? Penn State was on a bye. Clemson was on a bye. Florida was on a bye. These are really good matchups. I know some of the matchups are weak, in the first round y'all didn't like, but these matchups are really good. Clemson, Alabama is a really good matchup. Notre Dame and Penn State gave us a great matchup last year. That'll be a heavyweight battle this year. Baylor and Texas will be a closer game than many people think, and then Florida and Ohio State will be a great game. Oh, that'll be a phenomenal game. I would want to watch that right now. I would, if that game was on right now, I would end the episode and watch it right now. I promise you I would. So let's talk about these matchups and who I believe is going to win each game. These are tough to pick. These are extremely tough to pick. Like I said, I truly like a lot of these matchups, but let's get to the quarterfinals. We got that 4-5 game, Ohio State versus Florida. This is a true, I like to say a blue blood clash, right? Right? You got the reigning national champions from last year versus a rising SEC giant, right? Florida exceeded expectations this year, right? But the problem is when you exceed expectations, especially with the toughest schedule in all of the sport, then your expectations go through the roof, right? You look at the, returning production, right? Their offensive line is the best in the country for my money, anchored by Jake Slaughter. Best interior offensive lineman in the sport. Ball and Jackson give them great balance, running back. And duos seem to be the new theme at the sport. You need two running backs in this game, right? And then DJ Lagway has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in the sport as well. If he minimizes turnovers, stay healthy, most importantly, have fun. I mean, truly have fun out there on the field. Don't overthink it. When it's time to make plays, make plays. When it's time to, make a wild throw with your live arm, make that throw, bro. Have fun, minimize the mistakes, and stay healthy, bro. And I'm telling you, have a great season. And he should be in the Heisman conversation. He really should be. The wide receiver room is loaded as well. Dallin Wilson is a star. We've seen him ball during spring camp, and he's been doing the same much of fall camp as well. Eugene Wilson is he's the guy that's been there for a while. He'll probably be the number one target in a sturdy event. He brings a lot of experience as well. Defensively, we know Tyreek Sapp. It's all about him. He anchors that defense, and it's a nasty unit, bro. This game is tough to call. But here's what I look at for Ohio State this year, and when I look at them. How well does Julian Sayin emerge? How good can he be? Granted, fall camp is almost over. He will get all first team, all the reps now before they play Texas, right? And that'll be a good calibration game. But here's what I think about Ohio State as it pertains to the playoff. They're the reigning national champ. 14 players drafted in the NFL draft. Chip Kelly went to the NFL. Jim knows, I don't know what they were thinking. They let him go right to Happy Valley, making the rich richer, right? I think that's too much. How quickly does Brian Hartline and Julian Sayin build a rapport? And it has to happen quickly because Big Bag Texas is coming to town week 1, right? And Matt Patricia, what does his defense look like? What will the utilization of Caleb Downs be? We saw he was effective not only on the defense side of the ball, in special teams, he's effective as well. And as much as I like Ohio State, and it'd be dope to see a back-to-back champion, I think their run ends here. I'm that high on Florida. Florida advances to the semifinals. All righty, we got a showdown here. Old foes. We got a showdown. Baylor versus Texas. This is an all-Texas showdown. We got the Big 12 champ versus the SEC champ. I've talked a lot about Baylor already. You guys know how I feel about Sawyer Robinson, Bryson Washington, Michael Trigg, Josh Cameron, Kobe Prentice, right? You guys in Skaggs are going to be their spell back with Pendergrass being out. Let's go ahead and talk more about Texas since they had a bye in the first round. I haven't had the ability to talk much about them just yet. I have them winning the SEC. I know we got the man in media cartel. But it's not just hype to me. I don't understand why people like, well, he's not going to play as good as everybody says he is. Or we need to hold back. Bro, he's been developing and learning the process for 3 years now, bro. If y'all don't think he about to come out and wow, and he's going to wow in week 1, and he brings a different element than Quinn Ewers had. And Sark, he's one of the best conductors in the sport as it pertains to calling plays, right? So he's going to develop him into a star. They got a safety value and like a safety, like somebody that's going to be a safety blanket. I think for Arch this year is going to be Jack Entries. He was one of those portal gets that a lot of people probably slept on, didn't really pay a lot of attention to. He's one of the best tight ends in the nation. I would pick him over a lot of tight ends. I promise you I would. And then a running back duo of Travion Wisner and C.J. Baxter is strong. Hopefully C.J. Baxter is 100% back. He's 100% healthy. It'll be good to see this duo go, at it. And then we got the wide receiver room. Wingo, Mosley, and Moore. They're solid. And they got a plethora of talented freshmen who are going to also get pivotal playing time. Sark has made football and Austin relevant again. Texas is officially back. And as much as I love Baylor, and I almost picked Baylor in this game. Y'all know I did. I'm going to go ahead and go with Texas. Texas advances to the semifinals. Up next, we got Alabama Clemson. Another really good matchup. This may be the best matchup of the entire playoff. Alabama, Clemson, neutral site. Dabo going up against the team he played, college ball for. Oh, man, that would be incredible. That would be incredible. Dabo, and we've already talked about Bama. Let's talk about Clemson. Dabo has stuck to his blueprint and is working. Dabo, I did it my way, Sweeney. I tell you, if Clemson finds a way to win a national championship, the run that I think that he's going to go on is going to be comparable to when Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals won the Stanley Cup back in 2018. Alex Ovechkin was outside after they won it. He was 100% outside, bro. He really was. Like, everywhere with the trophy. He at the club with the trophy. At the bar with the trophy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what he was at. Man, at a restaurant with the trophy, man. On the subway with the trophy. Bro had the Stanley Cup everywhere. I think that boy will go on that type of run. Because it'll be a lot of people who got to tell you, I told you so. Right? I feel strongly about them. Cade Klubnik has flourished under Garrett Riley. The development is there. When we talk about developing players and developing quarterbacks, do you remember what Cade looked like in 2022? And granted, I know he was the number 1 quarterback in his class, composite, coming out of high school. But, dude, I was afraid. I'm like, yo, this ain't what I thought they was getting, right, in 2022? For them games that he came in and ended up playing them. I know one of them was against Syracuse when both teams were doing pretty well. I'm like, yo, is this kid going to throw the ball or is he just going to run around, right? 2023, we saw some improvement. But still, it was just like, this ain't the kid that we thought coming out of high school. Last year, we saying that 100%. And that has to deal with Garrett Riley and also Dabo Swinney and their ability to develop players. And this roster is loaded. They're number 1 in return of production. Return of production is through the roof, right? Defense is scary. TJ Parker, Peter Woods, Sammy Brown, Wade Wooders, Avion Terrell, a really great corner in this league, and then Khalil Barnes at safety, and then the wide receivers. I love the wide receiver room, right? You got Moore, you got Antonio Wilson, and you got Brian Wesco. And they're all explosive. This team is scary. Clemson's going to be really good this year. So this matchup, I like it, though. Got Ty Simpson and his emergence, right? And what does that look like with Ryan Grubb at coordinator this year? Kalen DeBoer, we're here. Alabama expects to be here, but Alabama don't just expect to be here. They expect to win when they get here. That's a whole new level, right? When you're expected to win. Yeah, you should be here. They ain't gonna give you no flowers for making the playoffs. You better go win it. Then they give you some flowers, right? Then they roll out the red carpet for you. I like this matchup a lot. I think it's my overall favorite matchup of the entire playoffs. Ohio State, Florida is a sexy matchup as well, but this one may be my personal favorite. Clemson advances. I feel strongly about Clemson. Notre Dame versus Penn State. We got a matchup, an elite matchup. We saw these two teams play a year ago. And when is South Bend going to announce their starting quarterback? And Marcus Freeman, who typically chills, he's been talking a lot this offseason. It's been a little bit weird, like talking about, okay, yeah, we're going to have formations we use. He's a defense coordinator, bro. We use Jadarian Price, Andrew Love on, and yeah, we may use both quarterbacks this season. I don't know if this is like smoke screen talk or, if he's just talking the talk, right? I still like the team. I really do. But Penn State, Drew Aller is the most disrespected quarterback in the sport. I've said that before. You guys heard me say that a million times. He really is. Like, don't place James Franklin limitations or Andy Kotelnicki, because at times I feel like, but I don't know if he was stripped from calling the plays he wanted to call, with James Franklin being there. Don't put some of their inconsistencies on Drew Aller. Please don't. And don't base Drew Aller, mad dog, from ESPN, based on a couple of games you've seen, like the Notre Dame game where he played arguably the worst game of his career and they still had an opportunity to win. Go watch some of them other games. Go watch the USC comeback. Right? This kid is like that. He's legit. And I like that wide receiver room too. I really do. With Hudson, Ross, and Trevor Pena. I think this is much improved for them. And with Jim Knowles conducting this thing defensively, look out. And I think Dennis Sutton is about to soar up the boards, and A.J. Harris is going to be a dog in this system as well. Notre Dame is a good team. Penn State going to get revenge. There's not too many teams I like in this country more than Penn State and Clemson. I'll tell you that right now. They were 1-2 in CFB Nation Top 25 poll. Right? Now we're headed to the semifinals. Let's get this graphic up. Booyah. So now you can see it all. You can see everything. You can see where I'm at. You already know the results. We just gonna talk about it. So we got Florida versus Texas. Really good matchup, right? I feel like either one of these teams could win this game. And I do have Florida finishing second in the SEC, Texas finishing number 1 in the SEC. That means that Texas got them in the SEC championship. Well, that means Florida gets their playback. They're going to 100% get their payback. 2 SEC powerhouses. When Florida is good, college football is better. They really are. They really are. I saw some people have Michigan in their college football playoff. And I was like, is there something I'm missing? Really, like, am I underestimating Michigan? I had to ask myself that. Then I went to go look at their roster. I said no. Everything they got going on, the suspensions, no, I don't see it. But this Florida-Texas matchup, I like it a lot. 2 programs I believe in a lot. And I think we see one of these DJ Lagway specials where you put it all on the line and they go down and they find a win. I got Florida in the national championship this year. People's LSU is my Florida. 100%. Clemson versus Penn State. I'm going to say this now. If they're on opposite sides of the bracket, Clemson and Penn State are in my college football playoff championship. They just so happen to be on the same side of the bracket, right? So they got to play. Elite defense versus elite balance. 2 well-constructed rosters built to win. So now we're going to look at, I like both of these quarterbacks. I like both of these running games. I like both of these defense. I like both of these offensive lines. Where's the difference at in coaching? Dabo over James Franklin every day of the week, twice on Saturdays, maybe even 4. Give me Clemson in this game. Heavyweight battle, yes, give me Clemson. Dabo has been there and done that. He's been there and done that. My national championship, Florida versus Clemson. This would be a huge W for college football. We got Florida and Clemson in the national championship. I think it'll be a good game. But I think it'll come down to coaching. And what Dabo Swinney is able to lean on, and his coordinators, and what this team has, Like I said, I think this will be a heavyweight battle for a championship, but I got Clemson winning it all. For the people who were confused about Clemson being number 1 in college football, and I'm going to go back to my original screen. So I got something to say. For the people who were confused about Clemson being number 1 in our poll, take in consideration that that poll was voted on by a myriad of people, not just a few people. But now, I don't know if the people in the comment section, and granted, we enjoy the comments. Like, we truly do love, hate, indifferent, however you feel. We truly enjoy the comments. But for some of you to look at that and say, oh, Clemson not the number 1 team. I'm a Clemson fan. They're not the number 1 team. Based on what? Like, when y'all comment, please give reasons why you believe they're not. And I promise you we can have a healthy discussion. But if you look at a list and say, oh, this list is a joke, or this is just that, and you don't give no, like, information, bro, like, all right. You missed the offseason. You're not a 1%er. You were nowhere to be found like January through July 31st. You came back August 1st and wonder why people are high on Clemson, right? I mean, that's what it has to be in the grand scheme of things, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. That's how I feel. Am I wrong to feel that way? I don't know. And I don't think so, to be honest with you. But let me get the last bracket that I had up here, the national championships, so y'all can see that one, even though you just did. But yeah, this is my college football playoff. I feel strongly about this. 2 omissions that I have that can come back to get me. Oregon, LSU can certainly come back to get me, and not sticking with my gut and putting Oklahoma in my bracket will probably get me as well. For everybody on CFB Nation listening to this right now, you want your bracket done? I got the teams. I got 3D images of the teams. Send me your list, and I'll do it for you. And you can release it yourself. We can all release it at the same time. However y'all want to do it, just let me know. It's been a fun episode, man. Another hour in the books. Per usual, man. That's what we do over here, man. I promise you it's what we do. Fun episode. Another one in the books, like I just said, man. G5 governor. Shout out to the American Conference. I'm actually going to go get some t-shirt printing equipment today so I can start making my own t-shirts. That's something I've always wanted to do because I'm tired of wearing other people's brand. So all you about to see me in is CFB Nation gear, Governor College Football gear, and Mike's fitness gear. I do know the name of it. The initials are AG, but until he gets everything, where it needs to be, I can't tell you what the name of it is, but he wears it all the time to the gym. That's all y'all gonna see me in. So I'm gonna go pick up all the t-shirt printing stuff I need today, pick up a bunch of shirts today. I'm gonna start making my own shirts. That's all I'm gonna be wearing. And then, of course, I open up a store at some point. That's something that I have truly in the books. As I always like to say, there are no more victories in a sport that survive in advance. That's why college football has the greatest regular season. And until next time, you all take care. Hey, man, we here and we back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like I say, bro, we gonna try our best to outwork everybody this year. As far as putting out content, it's gonna be difficult. Probably the only one I ain't gonna be able to get is Paul Feinbaum, because bro do like a 3-hour show, but it's a call-in show. You know what I'm saying? Not saying anything bad about the show. I'm just saying it's a call-in show. So there's a little nuance. You could just talk to people, let people argue. Like, there's a certain nuance. But I'm talking about just straight talking ball for an hour. You can be hard pressed to find somebody that's putting out more content. But you all take care, man. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. New shows are coming. I talked to Nino and D-Now yesterday. They have a new show debuting. It's a show that you guys know, but D-Now's being added to the mix. Excited for that. Nino's got a new show that he's about to debut. Me and Moon got a show we're about to debut. And then we're gonna really do On the Road again this year. And that'll be all stuff from the sidelines. And then I wanna do something for CFB Nation just in upload format. Haven't figured out what that is, but like I say, I'm ready for it, man. You all take care. Thank you for being here, as always. Governor of college football, we're gonna recap ACC.
Hey, that's CJ
Defensive
on that
minds.